All right, and we should be live. Welcome to Thoughtful Money. I'm Thoughtful Money founder and your host, Adam Taggart, welcoming you here for a special live stream this Wednesday morning. We are joined, as usual, when we talk about gold and silver, by precious metals expert Andy Schectman. Andy, how you doing?
I am well. How are you, Adam? Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming back on. Thanks for jumping on so soon after returning from one of your latest travels. You are one of the most traveled men I know, Andy. So very much appreciate you waking up early.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here. Pardon hopefully my synapses are firing after 5 nights in Las Vegas. It'll be a miracle if I'm able to connect the dots here, but I'll give it my best shot.
No, I'm sure you're going to be great. Now, for folks watching, we, at the end of Andy's last appearance on this channel, which was about 2 weeks ago, we started to get into the topic of some of the bigger, for lack of a better word, scams that go on in the gold and silver precious metals industry. And, we didn't have enough time to do the topic justice. Ask the audience, hey, would you like us to get more into this next time Andy comes on the channel? And of course, the interest exploded and said, yes, please, absolutely. So Andy, why don't we try to start where we left off last time, which was, I think one of the biggest frauds that you see out there, frauds or abuse, is in the kind of gold in your, own gold in your IRA programs that are out there. Not that that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, to hold some precious metals in your IRA, but there's the right way and a wrong way to do it. And B, it sounds like there's some potentially unscrupulous companies out there that the way in which they implement this is very much not in the interests of most of their clients. So if I've kind of teed the ball up correctly, why don't we dive into that?
Yeah, and I think it's important too, how I stumbled across this. I've been doing this for 35 years, and you didn't hear about companies like this most of my career. I have a client or a few clients along the way where family members or friends had stumbled into some of these problems and alerted me to it, sent me copies of their statements, a few of which I've sent you, just to give you an idea of what it's like. And I started digging a little bit more into it, found out just how pervasive it was, did a few podcasts, and then I was contacted by a man who said, well, I need to introduce you to my best friend's son, who's an FBI whistleblower, because I was taken by this, and we helped this gentleman, and then he introduced me to Kyle Seraphan, who is the FBI whistleblower. I went on his show and talked about this and received upwards ends, I don't know, between that and a few shows I've done subsequently, north of 500 emails from people who have fallen prey to this issue. This is not being done to elevate Miles Franklin, my company, in any way. This is something that I have struggled with in terms of bringing it to the public, but doing it the right way. I would love to have a debate on your channel with any of the CEOs of these companies. I don't mention their names because I don't need to be dragged into a lawsuit or become any more visible on this stuff than I already am. But I will tell you the stuff that I see. I wish I could name their names because it's as criminal as anything I've ever witnessed in 35 years worth of business in this industry. So please keep that in mind, that this was something I stumbled across and then realized when I have an 85-year-old man come up to me in tears saying he's going to get divorced if his wife finds out what's happened, it's over for him. That's just one experience of many that I've had that are torturously tragic, and I mean that sincerely, and I'm not trying to sensationalize this. So when it's interesting, I have a friend, and I don't know if I mentioned this the last time, but he was a broker for Stratton Oakmont, the Wolf of Wall Street, and when I asked him about it, I said, "Did you get in trouble?" He said, "No, I left, thankfully, the minute I found out it was bad, that things were going on that were less than kosher, above board." But he said a lot of the guys that I signed up with, they left the main company, but with Jordan's blessing, Jordan Belfort, the owner, the Wolf of Wall Street, opened up other offices, satellite offices that was doing the exact same thing that he was. And I say that to you because there were all of these offices there doing the exact same thing. Well, that's what we see here. Every one of the companies, and I would like to name them, I can't, I'd like to, they all do the same thing. They all sell the same product. They all learned from somewhere. The whistleblower that was on Kyle's show was the CFO of a company, and he says that company, if you go to Kyle Seraphan on YouTube, you can see this. Sarah Westall on Rumble, I believe, also interviewed this same gentleman. But the whole thing was, he said, look, there was a company, and I think it was Merit that failed. Almost positive was the name of it. And they all left and started a new company in this guy's living room using the database that they had taken from the failed company. And they all do the exact same thing. So what I have been doing, rather than naming companies outright, is just telling you what they sell. And it has resonated to the point where we're getting 20, 30 emails a day, every day, people saying, I think I was caught up in this. And we try and help them, tell them what to do and how to extract themselves from what is, in my mind, as criminal as anything I've seen in finance. So with that being said, the MO with all of this starts with gold. And for whatever reason, it's always quarter ounce gold coins. Quarter ounce gold coins that I have never heard of before, yet cut off of or issued from mints that I have heard of. Now they will tell you that these are investor coins or special coins. They are better than gold bullion, they'll tell you. Why would you want just gold bullion? You don't want gold bullion. You want the special coins that the wealthy people are buying. The interesting thing about these so-called special coins is that you can't really find them anywhere else. You can't find comparables to shop them against. And so they tell you that these are very special, unique coins, and they're primarily focusing on IRAs almost entirely and dealing with older folks who maybe aren't as knowledgeable with the internet and shopping, and they're very trusting. And so these coins will typically range in price, even going back 2 years ago, which is really egregious. And 2-3 years ago, the numbers were between $950 and $1,200 per coin on a quarter ounce gold coin. And the price now has gotten up into the $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 per coin range. Do the math. You're talking, $5,000 an ounce gold. And it's the same through every single one of them. These are the companies that are promoted by high price spokespeople. I did an interview on Mike Adams, the Power Ranger show. The Health Ranger show, Power Ranger. Going back to my childhood, to the Health Ranger. He was offered, and I can say this because he said it publicly now twice on this show that I've done with him, was offered $1 million a year by one of these companies to promote them. Wow. Realized immediately that that's not how things work and turned it down. But the MO is the exact same across the board. High paid spokespeople focusing primarily on IRAs, gold coins in a quarter ounce variety that start at 900 and go all the way up to 13 or 14. Silver coins, typically fractional, typically from the Royal Canadian Mint. The Royal Canadian Mint allows people like myself, companies, to, if I wanted to buy a coin that I would have exclusivity to, you have to spend a good deal of money, and they will give you a coin that is not 1 ounce. It'll be ½ ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, 1 1/4 ounce, 1 1/2 ounce, 2 ounce, because it doesn't compete with their maple leaf. And then it's a design that would be emblematic of an animal or a geographic characteristic of Canada. We did one not too long ago in a 2 ounce variety. It was a Rocky Mountain coin. We had exclusivity to it, but we sell it for the same price as maple leaves. Well, these coins are being sold for between $60 and $110 a piece, if not more, and always being touted as special, as collectible. And it goes further than that too, Adam. And at any point, if you'd like to ask me a question or someone wants to chime in with questions, please stop me.
Don't worry, we're getting there.
Yeah, one of the things I was asking some of the guys in my office who have had luck with helping clients with this, some of the other things that they hear, oftentimes what they will tell you is, in essence, they're telling you to cheat the IRS, not in so many words, in that one of their selling points is that, well, when people get their statements and their statements show a 50% haircut or whatever it is, and they freak out, they say, no, you don't understand. The custodian just publishes the spot price, but the retail price on these is a lot more than the melt value. And so when you're cashing them out, if you want to take possession of the gold or cash them out later down the road, you're only being taxed on the metal value. The IRS doesn't know that these coins have exceptional value, and even if they're worth, so in other words, they publish, when people ask them for their value, they'll show they'll give them the retail value. If it came time to cashing it out, that's not the price that they get. That's the price that they use to scam everybody. They talk about giving everyone $10,000 worth of free gold and silver. If you spend a certain amount of money, we would have to do an order north of $2 million to even make that kind of commission to begin with. And how they're able to do it on a $100,000 order, you have to ask yourself, if they're giving you 10%, how much are they making? And the premiums we have found, Adam, range anywhere from 75 to 175%. That's how much they're making. And it's as bad as anything I've ever seen in my career, because these accounts are massive. A lot of people's IRAs, they're calling them because they're concerned. They see someone, whether it be a YouTube celebrity or an actor who is promoting them, they feel safe. And they go to these companies. Now, the reason these companies have A+ ratings with the Better Business Bureau is because when somebody complains, and which is, I'm sure the exception, not the rule, they hope that most people just don't even notice this or pass away and it's inherited by their heirs or whatever it is. It's almost entirely IRAs for this reason. But when someone complains and does it the right way, they're made whole, but they're made to sign a NDA or a disclosure that they won't badmouth the company. Mm-hmm. So they, in essence, instead of drinking their bathwater, they cough up and then they make you sign a disclosure that you won't, publish anything poorly or issue bad comments about them. So they're able to somehow, with great with an illusionist, if you will, like of a pro magician, they're able to maintain this A+ Better Business Bureau rating. But when I tell you, I've never seen anything like it, I'm dead serious. So I'm happy to answer any questions and we can go through all of this, but that's pretty much standard across the board of about 10 companies who all do the same thing. The only other thing that I would throw in there is some companies will sell modern mint proof coins, or modern minted MS-69 or MS-70 first strike. That's just one notch below, as far as I'm concerned, the level of deceit. But we don't see that as much in the IRAs. Typically in the IRAs, it's the 1/4 ounce gold and the high price silver, and being told that this is what the wealthy people are doing. This is what you want to get. This is where you'll make all the money. Couldn't be further from the truth.
Okay. So first off, Andy, thank you so much for sort of sounding the alarm on this. Let me just repeat a few things to make sure I and the audience are totally following along. First question though, you said this is like something you've not seen before. How new is this? Is this just the past couple of years? Has this been going on for a decade?
As far as I can tell, this is just the past couple of years, at least in terms of it being brought to my attention. And when I have spoken about this, the plethora of statements that we get from people, typically it's 2019 and to today. It's the last 4 or 5 years that this has really gotten to be a big deal.
Really taken
as gold has gone up, the public spokespeople all over the place have become more and more obvious as well. So it's just with the rise of gold, I think, that we're really seeing it.
Got it. And since you're not naming names, which is the right thing to do right now, we don't want to get embroiled in any sort of lawsuit here. I don't know if this company is on your list, but I suspect it might be. I've been approached in years past to sort of serve as one of these spokespeople, and have turned it down because with a little scratching, you begin to realize this doesn't really. There's something that seems fairly shady about this.
Right.
But okay, so what you're saying is, look for, or if you see these things, be very cautious, and that is. One of these companies out there using paid promoters who are known in the industry to help talk about their product, or what I was told was, hey, you don't need to talk about our product at all. Just talk about how great gold is. But we're going to use clips of you to eventually then push our product. The product that they're pushing, you said, tend to be these 1/4 ounce gold coins, and they're of a design that is really not very known, right? And they are spinning that as, hey, this is really unique. It's a collectible. You have all this additional collectible value. So you're buying it at a much higher premium. Sounds like you're saying premiums are between 75 to 175%. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
They're generally taking advantage of older people or people who are less experienced, who are much more trusting. And they're telling you basically, all right, look, we're going to report this on your statements at spot, which is much less than what you paid. But hey, that's great, wink, wink, because you're showing the IRS that this is actually a low value, so you're going to get taxed less on it. But lucky you, the street value of this thing is much higher. So Andy, where does this collapse? Does it collapse when somebody says, okay, it's time to sell out, and they get their check and the check is much lower than they thought? Or how do they determine that they've been scammed here?
Most people don't. They don't, and when they do, they're bullied, they're intimidated, they're told. Also, these people are pros. That's all I can tell you. And you have to know what to say and how to say it. You have to be very forceful. You have to, more or less threaten that you're going to open the gates of hell. And as these people should, as far as I'm concerned. These are people your parents' age, Adam, that are being destroyed with no recourse. And it's even worse is that I think the people promoting them have no idea that this is going on. Had I not stumbled across it and started talking about it, I don't know how many people would still be in the dark on this. So the bottom line is, you call them and say, well, why is my statement so out of whack? Well, they just published the melt value. They don't publish the real price. And here's the real price. They send you some official looking document that has their retail price. But if you ask it for the wholesale price, what will you buy it back for? It's wickedly different. They don't give you that. And so they're constantly being deceitful and pushing people out. And if you realize these are elderly folks, I mean, I don't know how many of them just die and their heirs inherit it and haven't the foggiest idea. That's how diabolical it truly is. And that's probably why they're
kind of planning that these older people kind of never sell. It gets passed on to the heirs, and the heirs are just like, well, I've got these gold coins. I guess I'll sell them for whatever this firm will give me. Right. And
that is correct. That is correct. And, it's that's why they focus on IRAs, because I think they figure they have a greater chance of getting away with this. This is also where people's largest cache of money is held in their retirements that they've worked their whole lives for, which makes it even that much more diabolical. I wish I could be more transparent and name some of these companies.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's not a
You're
good
telling people
idea.
what to look for, and
Yes.
these are pretty distinctive, so that's good. So so let's say somebody is watching here, Andy, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's me. I put my money in one of these things, or my parents put my money in one of these things." If I heard you correctly, it sounds like, look, all hope isn't lost. That if you are an angry enough, squeaky enough wheel, that they will capitulate for you. They might have you sign some stuff that says, "Hey, you can't go public with what we're doing." But it sounds
That's
like if
exactly
you
right.
challenge them enough, that they will make you whole.
That's exactly right. That is exactly what they do. I am looking at, for example, a statement right here. Person bought silver sea turtles, 1.5 ounce. I don't know what the hell that is. And these 1.5 ounce coins are, I don't know, strange to say the least. They paid $90.44 an ounce for these coins on July 11th, 2023. So 1.5 ounces. Let's look at, just to ballpark it. If we look at silver on July 11th, 2023, if we go back 2023, you're looking at roughly $25 an ounce silver. Well, for 1.5 ounces, they paid $90.44. For
Wow. So
silver,
spot value was what, about 38 for that one and
yeah,
a half?
yeah. And here's one I've never heard of: a 2022 silver loan Cypress, a 1 ounce coin. Now, I've never heard of this one. $60.29 they paid. A silver littoral battleship, 1 ounce. Never heard of that. $60.29. And silver moon landing, 1 ounce. $60.29, all purchased, all of it, on July 11th, 2023, was silver, roughly $25 an ounce. You can see what I'm talking about. They're paying 120+% premium on this stuff, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Andy, let me just jump in for 1 second here.
Yeah.
So the precious metals dealers that I've had, known my whole life, these are guys that have owned coin shops for, in some cases like 50 years, right? They always told me, just buy the sovereigns, because they're the most widely recognized. An experienced dealer can know right away pretty much if that's real or not, right? And especially if you ever gotten to a point where people had any questions about provenance, they recognize the sovereigns. They're going to give you the closest price to spot, or in some cases above spot for a few of them, right? Whereas if somebody comes in with, random mint X or design that the guy's never seen before, it's like, there's no way I'm paying spot for that, right? So if somebody came into your office with these coins that you just mentioned, what would your assessment be?
We would be paying 99% of melt value, because they sit on our shelf and no one buys them. And it's because no one buys them because no one ever sells these coins. They would be paid 99% of melt, and typically they would be melted down.
Okay, so zero collectible value,
zero.
right? So whatever they paid in premium, totally gone. And let me ask you this: so there are numismatic coins that have actual real collectible value, right?
Yeah.
we can go back and we can find
$20
lot of
gold coin,
a lot of the coins behind you, right? Yeah. But let me just say, these coins that are minted post 1980, by whatever mints that are commissioned to be unique or whatever, right? Do any of these relatively modern different coins have any collectible value? Or if somebody is telling you, oh, limited edition, and this is the moon landing one, or the Donald Trump one, or the sea turtle one, is that all pretty much just bogus?
It is. In fact, there's a Substack by someone named Colleen. I don't know who she is. It's called Colleen's Newsletter, and I think she was taken by this. But there's an interesting comment she makes. I just have to find it here. So let me just read this. It says, she says, creating a closed market for specialty coins is just one aspect of how unscrupulous metals dealers make their money. Every dealer of precious metals charges a premium above the current spot price of the metal itself. And this is generally a small percent above the spot price on that day, not double or more the spot price. Any dealer worth their salt will tell you exactly how much of the spot price and what their fee represents in your purchase price. An unscrupulous company's customer agreement may state that the seller is the only one potential buyer for your metals at the time you want to liquidate. But what they won't tell you is that they've positioned themselves as the best potential buyer of the overpriced coins they sell you. If you try to sell your coins to anyone other than the dealer who sold them to you, they will likely offer you spot or lower for that metal, nowhere near the price the seller would offer you to buy them back, irrespective of how rare and valuable they may tell you they are. I know this because I inquired with other buyers about their purchase price for my coins, and until the spot price of the metal itself substantively exceeds what you paid for the coins originally, you may not be able to recoup your initial investment by selling your coins to any other metals dealer than the company who sold you the coins. And that's what they do. They're the only ones. And when people get really angry and they're caught, they don't drink their bathwater. They pay what they should. And oftentimes we even tell people, no. I don't want my money back. Gold and silver are way up in 3 years that I've done this. You owe me more money, or I am going to, go to every length possible to make this miserable on you, and rightfully so, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's just the deal, is that they are selling coins that they create the market for. No one else will. And if you try and shop it anywhere else, you'll be lucky to get melt value on any of this stuff.
Okay, so I just want to come up with some general guidelines for folks here. You tell me if this is right or wrong. I would say in general, folks, if you're buying gold, buy the sovereign coins. And in general, buy the 1 ounce coins. Don't go to more fractional stuff. There's not a lot of utility there for you, and you're going to be paying more higher premium for it. And in silver, you can buy the sovereign coins as well. There are rounds that are more widely recognized than others, but in general, stick to the safe coins, stick to the most well-recognized mints and stuff like that, and form factors. And pretty much in your head, don't value any premium in there on this stuff, right? If you want to get into numismatics, it's a whole different world, right? It's like collecting art. And so I would say, don't let somebody tell you why something's such a great numismatic deal. And by the way, if they're showing you a coin that is what, Andy, older than 1930, like, don't even think it has, be very skeptical of its numismatic value. But in general, if you're going to get into numismatics, do a lot of research first. And I would get a reputable dealer who's been in the business for decades and has a very respected brand to lose if they screw you, and let them advise you on kind of the history and the dynamics of the market. And take your time to slowly get in there as you learn more about it. Don't just, if you're new to this and someone's trying to sell you on numismatics right out of the gate, that is a massive warning sign in my book.
Yeah, and I if this has happened to anyone in your audience, they should contact us. We will tell them what to do, how to rectify the situation and put them in a much better place. But they shouldn't feel bad about it. These people are pros, and they're very, very good at being deceitful. Someone in your chat said, well, here's one $56 for a 1.5 ounce coin. Well, that's not egregious. I mean, it's not, because you have silver right now at 34.47. So you take 34.47 times 1.5, and you have 51.70. So okay, it's a little high, but that's not the kind of stuff that we see. We see 1.5 ounce coins being sold for $120 and stuff like that. And that's common on every single one of the orders. These people, I ask them to send us your statement that what you paid. And every single one of them, they're paying $100+ for 1.5 ounce coins. And so, and being justified as being a rare coin that will make you lots of money if you hold it for 2 or 3 years, they say. So it's the same MO. So if any of your people have had this, don't be embarrassed. Please reach out to us. We'll help you. There's no shame in any of this. These people should be ashamed themselves. But if you've been if you've fallen victim to these con artists, these professional con artists, you shouldn't feel bad at all. You should just don't get mad, get even.
All right. Well, I appreciate you and your team being willing to help anybody that feels like they might have been a victim of this. So, folks, yeah, reach out to Andy and their team, and I'll be putting up their contact info. It's also right below this video as well. One other question here on the IRA side of things, Andy. I've also heard, there are companies out there that say, yes, own precious metals in your IRA, and you can self-custody. Which means basically, you can fill out some paperwork and we'll basically let you hold your own precious metals. You don't have to store them in a vault. You can store them yourself. And the risk that opens people up to is the fact that the IRS, I believe, is not on board with that, and will look at that as an early distribution from your retirement account, and therefore you will have to pay both the taxes and early withdrawal penalty on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I used to say to people, don't do it. There was the companies that tell you can do this typically are the ones that sell the LLCs, the LLC IRAs. And they do it because you can choose where you want it stored if you have an LLC IRA. However, that doesn't mean in your safe. That would mean you could choose our Brinks program if you wanted. You could choose any vault that you want, but it must never come into your own possession, your custody. If it's sent to a depository of your choice, that's fine. The IRS did rule against a couple who had taken possession of the metal because the LLC, it is a loophole, right? And it wasn't designed for you to evade IRS regulations regarding IRAs. And so I would say you're messing with fire. Don't do it. They came out and said, yes, if you take possession of it, it is a taxable event. And if you're under 59 and a half, you owe 10% penalty and back taxes and penalties as a result of it. So you definitely don't want to hold it yourself, but it's important that you mention that you can possess it, because in any IRA, to me, the key to owning the precious metals IRA, Adam, is the ability to possess it as a taxable event, of course. But you can buy gold and silver, put it in the IRA, and at any point, whether it be prior to 59 and a half, where you would be responsible for that 10% IRS early withdrawal penalty, or anytime, you can request delivery of the metal as what's called an in-kind distribution. and it's a to me the best reason to own the precious metals IRA, which leads me to another very important point, which I mentioned to you the other night, which is choosing a depository that is 100% segregated. You never, ever, ever want to choose allocated and not segregated. I've had horror stories. I told you a couple of them where people chose allocated. And look, I have nothing against Delaware Depository. They're a COMEX facility. I know the owners. He's a great guy. I had lunch with them not too long ago. I have nothing derogatory at all to say about them. They're a legit company. However, they don't segregate IRA silver. They'll segregate your IRA gold, but your silver is allocated. It's not segregated. And what that really means is that it's if an IRA company has a program, well, all of that silver is allocated to that program, but it isn't segregated to Adam Taggart. It isn't segregated to Andy Schectman. It is allocated to the program, and therefore, you will not, chances are almost 100% will not get back what you put in. And so if you put in name brand 100-ounce bars, you'll get back 100-ounce bars, but they could very well be generic, which happened to me on thousands of 100-ounce bars. And I'm not joking. I mean, it costs these folks a few $100,000 because they bought 100-ounce bars at $4 an ounce and sold it at near $40 an ounce. But you're talking a few $1 million worth that they bought in Johnson, Matthey, and Engelhard 100-ounce bars. What they got back were almost entirely Academy stackable bars, which are generic, and they would do nothing about it. They said, look, we don't segregate. We just allocate. You put in 100-ounce bars, you'll get back 100-ounce bars, just not the ones that you put in, most likely. And that's big.
Yeah, let me just interrupt to make sure the audience is following here. So you've talked about two things here. One is that one of the benefits of owning physical metal in your IRA is that you can take distributions from your IRA in bullion, right? You can say, hey, you know what? Depository, I'm 65 years old now. I've got 100-ounce bar of silver with you. Ship that to me in the mail, right? So that's a nice option here, right? So know that can happen, which is a positive. But beware, because if you're working with a depository that does not allocate, I think another word for unallocated storage is pooled storage, Andy, right? Where they say, you give us 100 ounces, we'll give you 100 ounces back, right? But if you give them, say, a Johnson Matthey bar, which is a more recognized brand, it has a higher market value,
correct,
than a generic 100-ounce bar. You might give them the Johnson Matthey bar, but if it's a pooled or unallocated solution, they might send you back the cheapest no-name brand they have and say, look, we gave you 100 ounces back, but you're actually getting kind of screwed in the deal.
100%. And that's, you just don't even want to take that chance. Whenever you use storage, whether it be in an IRA or not, segregation is an absolute must. Penny wise and pound foolish is the first thing that comes to mind. And I had lunch with the owner from Delaware here at my country club. In fact, the guy that I golf with, he had just got married when I moved in here, and his new wife, it's her brother who married into the Delaware Depository family. He runs a place. Great guy. I really liked him. Think he's honorable as hell and totally legit. He said, why won't Miles Franklin send us more business? I said, look, you know, we have our own storage program with Brinks, but when I use IRAs, I would love to send it to you, but you don't segregate the IRA silver, and we've had some bad experiences. Can you do that? Yeah, unfortunately, we can't. We do the gold. Just, it's a space issue. Well, that to me is the issue, and it's nothing about Delaware Depository, a fine company and a COMEX facility, but the fact that they don't segregate the silver can be a problem, and I would rather always choose a company like IDS of Dallas, who segregates their silver, or the Dakota Depository, who segregates their silver in your name. And whether you decide to take possession of it or not, you definitely just, you want it in your name. And that's, I can't underscore how important that is. So for anyone who has IRAs, make sure, if you're happy with the company, like someone said, what about Monetary Metals? They're a great company. I have nothing but respect. My company, SD Bullion, JM Bullion, APMEX, Monetary Metals, all above board companies with good reputations. You can buy it from a company with great reputation, but if it's delivered to a depository that doesn't segregate it, be careful. That could be a negative impact for sure down the road, as it was for some of my clients when I learned about this 15 plus years ago. I was paid a long time ago to fly around the country and help promote, at the time it was American Church Trust, now it's Gold Star, their IRA program, and they only used Delaware Depository. So I learned the hard way the importance of segregation. I didn't understand that way back when I was 30 years old being asked to do this. I do now, and I would tell anyone, if you're going to use storage, I don't care where it is, make sure it's a reputable company, make sure you know where it's stored, make sure you have access to be able to go get it if you want, and make sure it's segregated. Super, super, super important.
Okay, and just to shine a light on your work here, Andy, Miles Franklin offers storage, both regular storage and retirement account storage, that meet the requirements that you think need to be met, correct?
Yeah, and so when we talk about IRA storage with our Brinks program, I honestly believe our storage program's the envy of the industry. I believe that because we have exclusives with Brinks that no one has. But when you're buying an IRA through a custodian like Equity or New Direction or Entrust, they've already established the relationship with the network of dealers. The only way you could use my depository program, in fact, some of them will use Brinks Salt Lake City, where we have one of our accounts, but you can't use our account unless it's an LLC, because one of the things about, again, this is why it's so important to choose segregated. So if you were to open up an account at IDS of Dallas personally versus through the IRA, your cost personally would probably be 3 or 4 times more than it is in the IRA. What the IRA does, what the custodians do, is they work out special deals with the depositories, where they say IDS of Dallas, you could put $5 million in there, and you're only going to pay like $275 a year for fully segregated storage. You try and do that outside the IRA, and the minimum that would cost you would probably be 40 basis points or thereabouts. That's the cheapest you'd pay. So you're talking way, 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 way more, 10 times more if you're opening it up outside the IRA. They give special consideration to the IRA custodians who funnel them copious amounts of new business. So yes, you could use our storage program if it's an LLC, because you can choose the depository. But even if it's inside of the vault, they offer Bring Salt Lake City, and we have an account there as one of our depositories. They wouldn't let you do it because, and it wouldn't be in your best interest either, because you're getting that special rate from the custodian.
All right. So shortcut here for folks is just, if this storage stuff interests you, go talk to Andy and his team and see what's available there. One thing I will say on storage, I talked to a number of different companies before making the choice to make Miles Franklin and Andy the officially endorsed precious metals solution partner here for Thoughtful Money. One of the things you want to look at if you are looking at these storage companies is, obviously you want to look for all the things that Andy talked about. Do they segregate, et cetera. But you also want to look at storage fees. And I will say there is I've seen some substantial fluctuation in storage fees. So all things being equal, you want to get the place that provides the best service for the lowest storage fees. I know, Andy, you kind of think your firm, can beat any in the business, and I hope that's true. But I'll just tell viewers here, if you are currently storing with somebody else, if you haven't recently done kind of a comparative analysis of what you're paying that solution for storage versus what else is available out there in the market, I'd recommend you just invest in doing that comparison, because you might find you're paying more than you should.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, storage first starts with reputation. I have partnered with Brinks because in 16 years of a storage program with them, I've never raised my voice or seen an ounce of metal out of place. And I think again, penny wise and pound foolish. You want to partner with companies that have large balance sheets, like Brinks, Fortune 100 company, never had an attempted break-in in over 100 years in any of their facilities. We know where the vaults are. We tell you where they're at. You can go and get your metal, retrieve it from the vault. These are all must-haves for me. Some of the things that make our programs unique: we have a fixed rate structure. I don't know of any other that does, where we charge on the number of ounces rather than the percentage of asset value. So, with gold being up 40% in the last year, people's storage rates would have gone up commensurate with ours. They stay the same. And we have safe deposit box programs inside the vaults in Toronto and Vancouver that no one else has. There are little things that we have that separate us and make us different from the rest. We have relationship with Brinks Miami and Brinks Dallas. To my knowledge, we're the only ones there. Little things like that.
Right. And you've got the Canadian solutions too, which I know are unique to Canada.
Yes, and our rates will beat, to my knowledge, everyone in the industry easily. So certainly we're able, and larger orders, you get a bigger savings across the board. It's also important to note for people who use storage, whether they do it through us or someone else, that storage expense is tax deductible. It goes to the cost basis of your initial investment. So if you pay $100,000 for metal and you pay $1,000 to store it per year, at the end of year one, your cost basis goes from $100,000 to $101,000, therefore making the cost deductible when you sell.
That's great. That's actually great to know. I didn't know that. So that's another really helpful point, folks. I'm gonna put Andy on the hot seat here, and I'll challenge folks that if you currently either are storing with somebody else or looking at storage, give Andy's team a call and see if indeed they can beat this. And I'll be curious to hear what folks say, in the next next one. So sorry to put you on the hot seat there, Andy,
That's
but I think
okay.
that'll be a great real-time test. Let me ask you this, since we're talking about retirement accounts. I just want to make sure everybody understands how bullion is taxed. So right now, bullion transactions, maybe you can just go through all the taxes. And I know part of it depends by state, right? Like in California here, there's a sales tax you have to pay. It's kind of like a window. If you buy less than a certain amount, there's no tax. If you buy more than it, there is tax. If you buy more than that, there's not. But then there's anti-money laundering reporting that comes into place. But in general, with the IRS, feds, when you sell your bullion, it's taxed as a collectible, right? It's a 28% tax. Am I correct?
Same thing with GLD and SLV, which is stupid as can be. But yes, that is the case. It is a 28% collectible capital gains rate, which you can write off penny for penny against the regular capital gains rate. If you had a capital gains loss, you could write the gain off against it. And there's a little bit of a switch, but yes, that is the case. I'm happy to go through the taxes with you. So when you buy gold or silver and you pay with a check or a wire or an e-check or a credit card, there's no reporting by you or the dealer. There are no taxes, obviously. Sales tax does come into play in a handful of states, which is just ridiculous if you ask me. Many of the states have repealed it recently. States such as Wisconsin and New Jersey have repealed, and they were two of the most aggressive in charging it. But my old home state of Minnesota is a prime example of stupidity. They're the same state that builds a twin stadium where the season starts in April, and if you go to the World Series, ends in November, and they have no retractable roof. In Minnesota, that can be a big problem. Well, they're also the same state that charges sales tax on legal tender coins like the American Eagle, but not on bars, which makes no sense to me. But certain states do charge sales tax, but that's only a handful of them. New Mexico, Hawaii, Minnesota, and a few others.
California is definitely one.
California does if it's under, I want to say $2,000, I think, you pay tax, but if it's over, you don't. Again, think about how stupid that is. Who are they penalizing? They're penalizing the little guy who wants to just put as much away as he or she possibly can, and they're getting taxed. The person who can write out a check for $100,000, no tax. Stupid. And there are other states who do that same thing too. In fact, I think Florida was one of them, but they are now, with the new passage of this law, I don't believe that will be applicable anymore. But the bottom line is this. Let's just talk in generics. When you sell gold, you're taxed at the 28% collectible rate. The only things that trigger dealer reporting, and it's only when you sell, would be the following. In gold, and the laws just changed, by the way, and so they used to be a little bit more onerous. Federally, they've gotten much better, and that's because of the definition of what can be used to settle a COMEX contract. But with gold, when you sell gold, if you sell Canadian Maple Leafs, South African Krugerrands, or Mexican 50 pesos in excess of 25 ounces, 25 or more in one transaction, a social security number and a 1099 is filed. You need your social. That's it for coins. Maple Leafs, Krugerrands, and Mexican 50 pesos. This was a ruling that was decided way back when with the IRS and a group called ICTA, the Industry Council for Tangible Assets. They agreed to these gold items as they were listed on the exchange way back when, on the stock exchange. And also gold bars in a kilo or higher. Anything under those amounts, there would be no dealer reporting. Doesn't mean you're not supposed to. Anything else that you would sell in gold does not trigger dealer reporting in any quantity. So in theory, if you sold 24 Krugerrands today and 24 in 2 days and 24 in 3 days after that, you could do that legally. You wouldn't want to tell the dealer this is your intention. I'm not trying, I'm sitting on 100 Krugerrands and I'm not going to pay taxes. In theory, we're supposed to fill out a SARS form, a suspicious activity report. So we tell people, the laws and how to look over them without stepping over them, and then hopefully they make the right decisions. So in gold, bars in excess of a kilo or more in one transaction, Mexican 50 pesos, Krugerrands, and Maple Leafs, more than 24 ounces on the 25th in one transaction. That's it. In silver.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but just real quick. So a 1 kilo bar is a reportable transaction? Just a single one?
Immediately, when you sell a gold kilo bar, a 1099 is needed. Now, you could sell 32 1-ounce gold bars
and be
and
fine.
Be no reporting.
So I'm just curious, for folks that have a kilo bar, could you bring your kilo bar to you, Andy, and say, how many ounces in a kilo bar?
Like 32.15.
Yeah. Could we do an exchange and say, hey, here's a kilo bar. Can you give me a bunch of coins? And then I come back, in a day or two, whatever, and say, all right, I'm going to sell, 20 of these coins.
Well, if they were traded for gold eagles, you could sell 5,000 gold eagles or or kangaroos or buffaloes or Chinese pandas. No reporting.
You're right.
What your point is something that we used to do a lot of, swapping gold for reasons like that. And then they largely, I think, because of crypto, they changed that law, and now they basically call it private property. So it's a separate transaction. So if you sold the gold, any legitimate dealer would need to, even if you're trading it for 32 1-ounce coins, would need to ask you for your social security number. It sucks because it should be like for like, and you should be able to carry the basis forward. Unfortunately, no. And that they've changed that law, I want to say in 2017. But now it's a separate transaction. So you could do it. You could, let's say you had a loss and you wanted just to sell it. When we talk about that kind of reporting, to me, it's constructive reporting because, I sold 2 kilos of gold bars. I paid for it on my taxes or booked a loss or whatever, or a gain, probably a gain nowadays, and told my accountant about it. But what you've done with the proceeds, there's no reporting requirements for. So you take the proceeds. We don't even send you back the proceeds. We just convert it into American Eagles, let's say, and ship you the Eagles. So yes, you filed with the IRS, you paid your taxes, but then you got back the gold Eagles with no paper trail, invisibly, legally. And so here again, we show you how to maximize your privacy under the law. So once you get it back, it's invisible. Now, that doesn't mean if you sell it, you're not supposed to claim taxes. It just means that you have an asset that no one in the world knows about legally. So there are benefits in doing a trade like that, but unfortunately, we used to do like for like, no problem. Now, in an IRA, you could do that, no problem at all. But outside the IRA, it is a taxable event, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. That's really interesting to know. Hopefully that's, if any kilo bar holders out there, hopefully that's valuable information for you. I interrupted you. You were going to talk about silver.
Silver, the only thing that triggers it now are bars in excess of 1,000 ounces in one transaction. They removed junk silver, which used to be on there, dimes and quarters minted prior to 65. Those are no longer dealer reportable, and they removed 1-ounce rounds. And the reason is that you cannot use them to settle a COMEX contract, and therefore they've been removed. So just any size bar less than 1,000 ounces. So you could sell a 1,000-ounce bar that's 985 ounces. I've never seen a 1,000-ounce bar that's 1,000 ounces, and I've seen lots of 1,000-ounce bars. They're all plus or minus 20, 30 ounces on either side. You could sell a 995-ounce, 1,000-ounce bar and no reporting, but if the minute it gets to 1,000, we need your social.
You need to report. Now, again, okay. So you want to hope yours is just a little shy if you have one of these 1,000-ounce bars, which is kind of crazy. The average person doesn't need a 1,000-ounce bar.
And that's doesn't mean that you're not supposed to report it. It just means that we don't have to do it on your behalf. So anything other than that, you could sell me $50 million worth of silver Maple Leafs, silver Krugerrands, silver. Now remember, I said gold Maple Leafs and gold Krugerrands. It's not the case on the silver side. The only thing that triggers it on the 1,000th ounce are bars. Anything else, there's no dealer reporting, period, when you sell back silver. But there's always your responsibility to tell Uncle what you did, and we tell you what your responsibility is, and it's up to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone asked, how can I find out these scam companies? Which is a fair point. And without naming them, I will give you something that I can tell you. What is his name? I would go to, first of all, I would go to Kyle Seraphan, his YouTube channel. He's the former whistleblower for the FBI who had the gentleman on his show. I had sent Kyle a video he did elsewhere, and Kyle then had him on his show, as did Sarah Westall. Both of them have had this guy on his show, and I can't even find his name. Let me see if I can find the link here real quick.
All right. And while you're looking, I'll mention, again, folks, intentional reasons why we're not naming names here. I will say, having talked with Andy a bit about this off camera before, all I'll say is during the live chat here, there have been a number of names that have been tossed out. I know that at least several of those names are names that are on Andy's worry list.
And the guy's name is Dale Whitaker. Here's one on Spotify, April 27, 2025. Dale Whitaker, gold buyer beware. Sunday sit down, gold Dale Whitaker. He was the CFO of one of these scam companies. He'll mention the company and he'll mention other companies as well. And they kept him in a different location. He was remote. And when he figured it out, the CEO said, I need you to do this. He said, no, I won't do that. You're cheating people. And then he became a whistleblower. So Kyle Seraphan, Seraphin, is my friend who I've been on his show several times. Very honorable dude. I mean, as honorable as they come. He had him on his show, as did Sarah Westall. But the guy, the whistleblower, his name is Dale Whitaker. All you got to do is Google Dale Whitaker, Kyle Seraphan, Dale Whitaker, Sarah Westall, or just Dale Whitaker, gold company whistleblower. And everything that I want to say, he says, and evidently he's got no problem with it. So, but I think if any of this stuff resonates with your listeners, reach out to us, and they can send us an email at info@milesfranklin.com. Saw you on Adam's show, was affected, I believe, by one of these companies. Can you help me? No obligation, no fee. We will help you. And if it works out that you decide to do business with us after the fact, that's fantastic. But we're here to help your listeners, Adam, and show them exactly what happened and how they can probably better their situation. You know, it's a weird thing when you talk against your competitors, because I've always learned you don't step on your competition to raise yourself. But this is a whole different level. The stuff that I have seen is truly heartbreaking. And I guess if you know, anyway you look at it, it's wrong. But what really makes it wrong is that the group, the segment of the population that they're targeting, and these are folks that do not have recourse. They can't go back to work and make their nut again. And it's truly grotesque. So we would love to help anyone that reaches out to us with no obligation whatsoever, no shame. Doesn't matter the size, could be small, could be big. We'll help you.
All right. Well, thanks for being a force for good here, Andy. I also just want to thank you again for getting into the details of all these questions we're talking about. We've seen a lot of comments like this one here. The show is packed with good info. Thanks. So you're really surfacing a lot of practical gems here for folks. A couple of last questions for you. I'll try to take one or two from the audience here too. You mentioned junk silver, and you did describe it. These are U.S. coins pre-1965 that actually have some silver content in them. Yep. It is one of the cheapest ways to buy silver. You can buy these bags by weight of pre-1965 coins, right? When I bought them from dealers, they put a little seal on the bag that lets them know that, okay, this bag is unopened if the seal isn't broken, right? And being an idiot, the first time I bought one of these, I opened the bag because I wanted to go see what coins were in there and whatever. And I know that dealers hate that, right? Because if I bring that bag back to the dealer, they have a concern of like, well, okay, now this bag's been opened. Did he take out half of these coins and replace them with ones after 1965, right? It's a pain in the ass to kind of verify that bag. So I guess your advice to people would be, hey, if you buy a bag of junk silver, don't open it. For idiots like me that did, do you have any advice?
I mean, it's that's your prerogative to open it, and it does make it easier to not, but I don't blame you for opening it. I have people that will count every single dime in a bag of dimes, $1,000 face value bag. They'll go through 10,000 dimes. We actually pay someone to, as maddening as it sounds, sit with a jeweler's loop on and go through every single
Oh God, that sounds awful.
every single coin, and it's crazy, but they do it. And first we run it through Coin Counter, make sure that the face value adds up, and then we will go through the coins to make sure that they are indeed what they are supposed to be. So, you know, I don't fault anyone for opening it up and looking at it at all. So it would make it easier for the dealer, but that's not your prerogative. We will pay you the same regardless. So,
oh, that's good to hear. I've actually heard dealers say that, look, if I'm busy, I'm going to quote you a little bit less on it because it's extra work for me.
Yeah, see, that's not the way it should be. And again, there are too many cut corners. It should never be that way. And you know, you people should get what they paid for and get what they're selling. They should get a fair price. So, no, we won't do that. In fact, it's interesting. During the pandemic, Adam, there was nothing other than Silver Eagles that had the premium that pre-65 junk silver did. Nothing. We were paying the public north of $10, $11, $12 over spot per ounce to buy back pre-65 silver, as much as people would sell us. The utility that it gives you is second to none. There's almost exactly 1 ounce of silver in 14 dimes, pre-65 dimes. The theory would be you get 14 transactions instead of one. Who knows where this goes, how high silver goes, whatnot. But I will tell you that from a standpoint of value, there's nothing that beats pre-65 silver right now. Nothing. That is not IRA acceptable. However, it has to be outside the IRA because it's not 999 fine. But if you're looking, you know, the thing about it too is that it lacks the wow factor, and that shouldn't be important, right? Well, for people who are buying silver for the first time, I think the wow factor is important. I think to look at something beautiful and shiny, and it I think is an important part of that first experience. With all of that being said, dimes and quarters aren't really going to wow you, but they are the best value. They
I was
offer
going to say, buy a couple of silver eagles, and just hold those and be captivated by them. But just buy the bag and don't open it.
Yeah, someone says screw the wow factor. I agree, but for some people who have never owned any silver before, they might want that. But you're right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just buy a couple of, you know, silver eagles to hold in your hand and geek out about. But
yeah,
the rest of it, just buy
you're
cheap.
right.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the silver community right now, nothing in the silver world that has the value that pre-65 does. It's my number one best value. I also really love the Silver Eagle, even though it's a higher premium coin. I love the Silver Eagle because of all the states passing legal tender laws, and many of them focused on Silver Eagles and Gold Eagles. So might be worth a little higher premium as well. And that's not in my pocket. That's just what it costs to buy the stuff from the primary distributors in the U.S. Mint.
Right. All right. So a couple of things here. And Andy, we're past the hour. If you don't mind, let's go for another 10-ish minutes or so if we can. So when you were on last time, I asked you about silver's potential here. We sort of talked about, you know, the precious metals complex like a whip, where gold moves first, the miners move second, and then silver, being the tip of the whip, moves the last but fastest, right? And gold is still holding strong here. The gold silver ratio is still extremely elevated here. So this is the past 30 years. It's only been this high really once before. So, you know, presumably if silver were to catch up, this ratio would drop from near 100 to 70-ish or so if it got back to kind of a historical mean here. So how excited are you right now about silver? I mean, do you see it as kind of a spring that's coiled to move big here, or am I, you know,
I think it's
too optimistically?
I think it's the value of a generation, Adam. And So do a lot of people, I think, at a much higher level than you and I, and that would be, for example, the big money that just brought in more silver on the May contract than ever has been delivered into COMEX. Wasn't so easy for me to say. What I'm trying to say is whoever is importing all this silver just brought in the largest delivery in the history of the COMEX on the May contract. Same thing in gold, by the way. But this is a phenomenon that we are seeing really unfold. One of my favorite guys to follow on Twitter is his nickname is King Kong on Twitter, and he's fantastic. And he's in Hong Kong, and he talks about how China is gobbling up everything and using it in terms of playing the long game, acquiring it for their country for years to come. They're the second largest producer of, his name's Eric Young, by the way, and the second largest producer of silver in the world, and they're flying all around South America buying doré and concentrate from Latin American miners, disintermediating the marketplace. So here you have the second largest producer in the world who is flying all around Latin America buying unrefined silver right from the miners so that the market doesn't have any idea how much they're buying, paying double what the West will, shipping it back to China and refining it. You have Russia, who has openly said they're adding it to their strategic stockpile. You have India, has bought over 900 million ounces in the last 5 years. That's more than the COMEX and the LBMA combined. And now all of a sudden you see these massive deliveries coming into the COMEX market here in the United States. This is crazy what's happening. And the price is being held down on levered futures contracts, where in London you have roughly a 290 million ounce float, the amount of ounces that are there, but they're trading 2.9 billion ounces a day, 10 times the float, 3.5 times annual global mine supply. They've been able to hold down the paper price. And we've talked about the why, the military industrial complex, right, and the need for silver and high-tech weapons. But I think when you see these kind of deliveries into COMEX, that reeks of something much bigger than we are being led on to believe. Now, in terms of its technical pattern, we're at almost a 20-year cup and handle formation. And at $35, you're kind of at the bowl, right at the tip of the bowl before it breaks out, the way gold already has. We are right there. Doesn't mean it's going to happen yet. The cartel, who's been holding down the paper price for a very long time, is more powerful than I would like to admit. But being naked short in this market is as dumb as a mud wall and an existential threat to a lot of these companies. So I don't think there's anything that I've ever seen that offers the asymmetrical risk-reward profile that silver does. In terms of downside, I think it's as muted as anything you'll ever try to invest in. In terms of upside, it's probably better than anything. And even if we just took the 150-year price average, which is suppressed, or the ratio between the two of 42-1, even though it's coming out of the ground right now, it's 7-1, meaning 1 ounce of gold for every 7 ounces of silver in the ground. It used to be 16-1 for 5,000 years. Now it's depleting, so it's 7-1. With all of that being said, for the last 100+ years, it's averaged, because of gold's role as money and silver's role in industry in the West, at about 42-1. So if you take gold right now at $33.75, up $20 today, $33.75 divided by 42, silver should be $80 an ounce right now, and that would represent the average price of the last 150 years. If you took the same gold price of $33.75 and divided it by 7, that's what it's coming out of the ground at $482. If you woke up tomorrow morning and silver was $482, people are saying, yeah, right, BS. That's the geologic ratio. Ask Keith Neumeyer if you ever talk to him. He's a buddy of mine. He'll tell you on your show publicly it's coming out of the ground at 7-1. He's the CEO of First Majestic. He says it to me all the time. So somewhere between that 7-1 and the historical ratio of 16-1, even the 42 to 1 average price ratio since the Industrial Revolution, were way undervalued, way undervalued. And I don't know of another asset that offers the kind of value where you're seeing the biggest money in the world go to massive lengths, not only to accumulate it, to disintermediate it, and to repatriate it, and to stand for delivery. These things we've never seen before. But they're using the suppression of the paper market in order to do that. I think it's the trade of a generation. And if you really want to talk about a speculative trade where you can clean up, and especially for an IRA, you can trade your gold into silver. Why an IRA? Because there's no taxes involved in it. Those transactions are tax-free. You buy silver at 100 to 1. All it does is get to its 150-year average of 42 to 1. That's over a double. And if it gets anywhere near its geologic ratios, guys like Bix Weir say, well, you're talking 11 times undervalued silver is. And this is what happens when you suppress markets for an extended period of time. The difference is now these countries that are standing up to the West are coordinated, motivated, sophisticated, wealthy, and they know what we're doing. And so they're standing for delivery as a way, playing the long game to I think, subsidize their future endeavors and using not only their trade imbalances, but the dollars. And it's funny because like China, as an example, China is now trying really, really hard to use dollars to buy gold and silver with, instead of putting the excess dollars and surplus into treasuries. In fact, they've even extended their import quotas for the banks. And so you have an inside source for the PBOC says that we've raised quotas for gold imports last month, which are and telling the banks to use dollars to go out and buy this, even telling them to go ahead and buy dollars in the open market and then use it to buy gold and silver, which then weakens the yuan, which is something that they want, strengthens the dollar, which is something they probably don't want. And then they'll go and buy gold with those dollars, which then raises the value of the gold that they've been buying. So this is a big deal. It really is. It's a big deal because the rest of the world, I think, understands, many of these countries in the BRICS in particular, understand that we've held down the price for far too long for various reasons, and they're using it against us by standing for delivery. And that's what Eric Young, King Kong, is saying. He's a brilliant man. He's saying that the Chinese are part of this suppression now too. They're using it just like the West is to stand for delivery on anything that's not nailed down. They're playing the long game. People in this country look at their portfolio and they think in terms of minutes and days. China and the rest of these countries are playing the long game in terms of years and positioning themselves using the last few days and hours of the Western pricing system against us to suppress the paper price and then stand for delivery, just like we see here on COMEX. Who's got $8 billion to stand for delivery on gold? And who's importing, the largest delivery in the history of the COMEX and silver on the May contract? Who's got that money?
Yeah, I know you think it's sovereigns. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned a couple of really important things there, but yes, sounds like you think silver, as you said, generational opportunity. One thing you mentioned, I just want to make sure didn't get lost in the shuffle, is if you own precious metals in your retirement accounts, you can move back and forth between gold and silver based upon the gold and silver ratio, right? So when silver is relatively cheap compared to gold, you can move from gold to silver. Vice versa, you can move back from silver to gold, and you can do all that without having to pay, capital gains along the way. So that's one important, especially if you've got some time ahead of you. If you're 30s, 40s, 50s, it's a pretty good argument having at least some precious metals in your retirement account to be able to play that arbitrage. I just want to show this image while you were talking, Andy. I pulled it up from Tavi Costa of Crescott Capital. He, was one of the most prolific chartists out there. He's a big fan of the precious metals complex. And this is a great chart that shows the cup and handle that occurred in both the precious metals. But you can see here that gold, the yellow line, has had its breakout. Silver has not yet. But if it does, it kind of gives you a sense of where silver could go.
So you see that formation is called the cup and handle. The big cup part is the base building. And that's when it when it's that long, that's a very powerful technical factor. And you can see where the blue line is. It's right at the tip of the cup, right at the tip of the bowl before it breaks out. That is as bullish of a technical indicator, especially one that is that long in formation, as you could possibly get. So it is. And you know, I remember one of the first speeches I ever did, I did with David Morgan. We did it together. And David and I used to speak together way back when. We would go to all the shows around, and I owe him a lot for my start speaking. Thank you, David, if you're watching. But he said to me once during one of our speeches, he said, gold and silver have a 90% correlation throughout all of history. Not always symmetrical, but oftentimes one will go first and gold will go first, silver will go further. But you can see gold led the way. The formation is symmetrical to the extent of if you step back and look at it at the big picture, it isn't always symmetrical in the way they move. One may go first and for an extended period of time, and silver will catch up. But it's following exactly what he's saying. It's following that same bullish technical formation and ought to break out in a massive way. When you see these kinds of deliveries onto COMEX, instead of standing for a paper settlement, it should tell you the big money knows something's coming. They wouldn't stand for delivery. No one ever stood for delivery. Less than 1% of contracts stood for delivery my whole career. And now, just since November, the amount of gold and silver that's been delivered into the COMEX is record breaking every single month, it seems to be. So big money knows something's coming and would choose to have physical possession of it. And I think silver, there are very few things that you could ever invest in that not only have plurality in its use cases, whether it be military, industrial, monetary. Most commodities have one use case. Silver has several. And at the same time, it's depleting in nature. The biggest money in the world is standing for delivery. The second largest producer in the world is buying doré and concentrate halfway across the globe and then paying to ship it back to refine it. You can see, if you look closely enough, that the big money is using the suppression as a subsidy to stand for delivery and as a tool of misdirection. Nothing to see here, folks. But if that were the case, then why are we seeing the deliveries the way that we are? And why do we see the London Metals Exchange go from T plus 1 day settlement to T plus 8 weeks? Because they say it's a shortage of trucks and manpower. Well, no, that's not it. They're getting exposed for the fractional system that they are because of all of these deliveries, and they're scrambling. So while it may not happen today or tomorrow, the pieces are being put into place. You can easily see, I will stand by my statement. It's the trade of a generation. It is. There are very few things in life that if all you do is just get back to historical averages, between gold and silver, you're looking at a double plus, almost 150% increase just to get back to 200-year averages. That would put silver at $80 right now. And that would still be at $80. It would still be 6 times undervalued geologically. So yeah. How high can it go? Well, I guess that's to be seen. But when you mess with interest rates and commodity prices the way that the West has, there will be consequences. And I'll leave people with one thought, and that is the BRICS Grain Exchange. The BRICS Grain Exchange was developed last year, and the guy developing it said, we produce and consume more grain than the West does, but we can't control the price. It's done on COMEX. But with the development of the grain exchange, that will change. Well, guess what? They're doing a metals exchange also, and they know exactly what we're doing. And that's why you're seeing so much volume on Shanghai. That's why you're seeing silver priced on Shanghai today. Where did I just put that? Today, the close yesterday was $36.36 an ounce in Shanghai. So if you're a trader and you can arbitrage, buy in the West and deliver in China, you will do that, and you're going to make a couple bucks an ounce on thousands and thousands and thousands of ounces. It's a good deal for your business, but that metal, that ain't ever coming back. And that's why they're doing this, is why they're arbitraging it the way that they are. So yeah, I don't sell gold and silver, Adam, for people to get wealthy. It is wealth, and it's being proven by the big money. And the fact that they're standing for delivery is what's different. No one ever did that. And that's how you disrupt and break the suppression chain, by standing for delivery, because the suppression is about naked shorting with a big pocketbook to overwhelm with contracts those that go long and keep shorting it, get a margin call. But if it's a sovereign wealth fund backed by the government of Saudi Arabia or China or Russia or whatever, well, that's okay. We'll pay the the margin call, and then we're going to also stand for delivery. Thank you very much. And that's why London says, oh, but we have a shortage of trucks and we're supposed to deliver that, it should be moving in 3 days. It's now 8 weeks. You can see cracks are happening. So yeah, I don't think there's anything quite like silver out there.
Okay. All right. So trade of a generation, and for all the reasons that you mentioned that we've talked about in previous discussions, to a certain extent, because of the price suppression, you're buying money at a discount, right? You're buying wealth at a discount, and this is a great time to get in. I mean, it's the distortion of the money is not a good thing for the system, but it can be a good thing for the individual who recognizes that real value is on sale and can get in here. All right, so we got to wrap it up here,
He's
Andy.
one of the best guys I've ever met, Jake's Custom Parts. I had the good fortune of having dinner with him and his family. He knows I love him. He's one of my favorite. Thank you, Jake. And we have all sorts of specials, which reminds me, don't look at our website. Don't look at the prices there. We purposely only allow a very small amount of purchasing on the website. For your listeners, send us an email, whether it be with questions with no obligation at all on what you heard here, or you want our price list, which for your listeners will be as good or better than anywhere in North America. Just send us an email at info@milesfranklin.com. Saw you on Adam Taggart. I'd like the price list, or I need to talk to someone about the IRA questions or anything you've heard here. info@milesfranklin.com, and we will make sure that your listeners are getting the best price, white glove service. And only if you want to be contacted, let us know. If not, we won't. We respect privacy, and that's the most important thing, that we're here when you need us, but we'll not push when you don't.
All right, Andy, thank you. So yes, folks, if you have questions, you want some help in figuring out what would make sense for you, or you actually want to buy and you want to take advantage of some of the things Andy has talked about, or you've got some worries that you or someone in your family might have been taken advantage by one of the scams we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, reach out to Andy and their team. Again, it's info@milesfranklin.com. You can see that right here on the screen. It's also right below this video, and they will take you by the hand and, basically just do their best to advise you on what they think is in your best interest. Andy, thank you so much. Folks, if you continue to like these regular appearances with Andy on this channel, it said we do it monthly. We're actually doing it a little bit more frequently than that, Andy, right now, just because there's so much interest in some of these key topics here. We didn't even get to a few of the ones on the list here, so we'll have you back on again soon to kind of pick up the ball there and go through a few more of these. But folks, again, if you continue to like this, let us know in the live chat, in the comments section below, because we always want to react to your preferences. And if there are key questions, topics that you'd like to hear Andy address in the future, again, surface those. I'll read everything that you guys post here, and I'll make sure that we customize future discussions to what you guys care about the most. Andy, my friend, thank you so much again for giving so much great practical advice here, but also doing it on very little sleep.
One last thing, and I'll let you go. Someone asked about platinum. Remember I said the May contract was the largest volume in both gold and silver? Well, on May 21, 2025, platinum futures trading volume on the CME COMEX reached an all-time high, indicating strong institutional interest as well. China also imported 14.5 tons of platinum in April, far outpacing its domestic output of 2 tons annually. Platinum is another great value. We can talk about that down the road. I'd love to keep answering questions. I love coming on your show, and whenever you'll have me, I'll be here. And for your listeners, info@Miles Franklin, zero obligation. If you just want the price list, ask for it, and even say, I don't want to be contacted if you don't, or please contact me if you do. And thanks for letting me be a small part of what you're doing, Adam. You're a class act, and it's an honor. So look forward to picking up where we left off.
Thanks, brother. It's the appreciation is mutual. I've written platinum down as a future topic, folks. If you're interested in that, again, let me know when you tell us what topics that you're interested in. 2 last things. One, please show Andy your thanks by hitting the like button if you haven't done so already, and then clicking the subscribe button below, as well as that little bell icon right next to it. And again, if you got any questions, if Andy's team could be of any help, just go to info@milesfranklin.com. Andy, thanks so much, buddy.
All the best, my man. You got it. We'll talk soon.
All right. And everyone else, thanks so much for watching.